Hi, this is Maria Mandarino. Thank you for being here. I'm here today with Julie Jacobs at Windhorse Counseling, and we're going to be continuing to look at the Enneagram and parenting, how the Enneagram and knowing your Enneagram can help you parent better and be more self-aware. Julie, jump in and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit
Sure.
about what you do.
Sure. My name is Julie. I'm a therapist in Chandler, Arizona. I see people virtually and in person, whatever works for my client. I also do some phone sessions, which are wonderful for my dog because he likes to walk around. Um, I've been doing this for quite a while. I work with people of all ages. I'm trained in lots of different modalities. EMDR for trauma. I do some sand tray, some art stuff. It's pretty cool. I love my job. I love what I do.
Yeah, and you do it really well, and definitely a unique approach to counseling. So, yeah.
That's the
All
word,
righty.
unique.
Yes, yes.
I
So, which is a good word for where we're going
like it.
today.
I like it. Yes. Yes.
Yep. Today we're going to take a look at Enneagram Type 4, which we do associate with being unique. Um, the Enneagram 4 is called the romantic or the idealistic person or the authentic person. And the idea for this series came through my work as an acupuncturist and working with women who are on the fertility journey and the stress points around that. And I do talk to people about the Enneagram there, but then it's, what happens on the other side, you know, being a new parent, which does not come with an instruction manual. And I feel that to some degree, the Enneagram does give us a manual of a map of our our inner being, our emotions, our emotional settings. It helps us understand what in our type is going to press our buttons and affect us as, in parenthood, and what in your type structure is going to strengthen and empower you. Basically, where do you go weak? Where do you go strong? Thinking of it in kinesiology terms, which until I said that out loud, I've never thought of it that way. Um, but it is kind of like that. So where's your strength? Where's your weakness? And in parenting, you've got to well, not you gotta, but it would be helpful to be able to make those assessments relatively quickly and make the adjustments that go with those assessments to minimize your stress, parent well, and raise a healthy and well-formed little human. So type fours in their healthy expression. They're idealistic, they're creative, they're deep feelers. I didn't mention that they're one of the heart types. So they're one of the three heart types with 2, 3, and 4. They are highly present in relationships and connections. They bond really deeply. They pride themselves on being authentic. We count on them for being authentic. They're caring. They are fearless around pain. If you're going through anything difficult or painful, they're the people that you typically want hanging around, and they will hang around. Um, and in their higher expression, they know they are loved and they don't have to be special in order to be loved. That uniqueness, that specialness can get the 4 into some trouble. So, in their unhealthy expression and that desire to be special, one of the other things that they can do is push people away and withdraw from situations, from relationships, from activities. Um, this one, I think, with women, and I don't want to just focus on women because men parent too, but from my perspective at the clinic, most of what I see is women. Unhealthy 4s are prone to melancholy, right? So we've got the biochemical piece in there with postpartum, and I don't want to not acknowledge that can also tie into the melancholy. And if you are a 4 going to an unhealthy place because you're just overwhelmed at being a parent, bear in mind that the postpartum piece can get braided into that and get help if that's what you're experiencing.
Mhm.
Um, Unhealthy 4s can just storm off. Usually what's under that is no one can just understand how I see anything because I'm just so unique, and that's just where the friend is just gonna, they just don't get me. When you're a parent, you don't really get to storm off. So, um, So
It's not all about you.
right. Yeah, for the next 18 years, it's definitely not all about you, right?
No.
Um, so, and there's extremes of emotions with an unhealthy four, right? And again,
Mhm.
hormonal adjustments need to be looked at there too. So if that's bigger than, I think most of us know our presets under stress. So if that preset looks like a whole new level of preset for you, again, that's where, go get some help and talk to somebody about hormonal things that may be making those extremes of emotions even bigger for you. Um, and fours also have a fear, unhealthy fours have a fear of the ordinary, and that gets to wanting to be unique and wanting to be special. And so yeah, so that's another unhealthy expression of the four. Julie, in the last episode, you talked about disillusionment, and I want to ask you a little bit
Mm.
about there. And I know
Mhm.
you and I have talked about it doesn't look like a normal Norman Rockwell painting. So tell me about that as you see it through the four, and how you would work with somebody, maybe what you would tell them.
Well, the four, being idealistic, being fearless, great qualities, right? The unhealthy quality, desiring to be special, withdrawing. Like if you have an unrealistic expectation of what parenthood is going to be,
Mm,
I can see that triggering you very quickly into those unhealthy places, right?
yeah.
Because it isn't, you are not going to be all that special anymore. It isn't going to be all about you anymore. I used to say when my children were young is I feel like the schlepper. The only reason I'm here is because I bring the children and all their crap.
Yeah.
Nobody even says hello to me anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, and not in a bad way. It was,
Right, right.
we used
Yeah.
to joke about it, but
Yeah.
I can see for a four, if they're in that unhealthy place, that would be very triggering for them.
Hmm.
I can
Hmm.
see where that would lead them into, well, fine, I'm taking my baby and we're leaving or whatever,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
having this very realistic expectation,
Yeah.
as realistic as it can be,
Yeah.
about you're not going to bounce back to your pregnancy body within 3 days.
Hmm.
You are not going to feel well rested quickly.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some of us maybe ever.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Um, um, your baby isn't going to be a perfect baby.
Right. Right.
They're all perfect babies,
Hmm.
but they all have only few hours that they can go without eating. So they're
Hmm.
not sleeping all night
Hmm. Hmm.
and they
Yeah.
need you to take care of them.
Yeah.
So you get to be special in that way.
Hmm. Mm. Yeah. And that's where the
But
healthy
also,
four is fantastic as a parent.
yes,
Yeah. Because if you
yes,
can
I can,
see that specialness in this life that I am
yeah,
responsible for, and that's what makes me special. I mean, not like over the top special, not in an unhealthy way, but if you
uh-huh.
see that that's part of the
Like it fills
purpose.
your heart and soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
So I
know,
can see where a healthy four, it would be just
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Everything would be great for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder about the four going from, especially first pregnancy to baby, right? Pregnancy, it's all about you at that point, right? Especially, like I
Yeah.
said, first time, right? I would think fours
Hmm.
potentially could really enjoy being pregnant.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, yeah.
if there's any level of imbalance in that four, when baby arrives, now everybody's all about the baby. You've been special for 9 months.
Mm.
Right. So I wonder about how fours might handle that, especially if they're leaning into an unhealthy experience of the four, or if there's a hormonal thing going on as well.
Mhm.
What that might elicit from the low four. And that's definitely where, the body mind really it needs to be both need to be held.
And like
something like
all
that.
personality types
Yeah.
really should focus on self-care,
Oh,
taking
absolutely.
care of themselves, doing what
Yeah.
they need to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I can see where, you know, that could be a very quick, slippery slope into an out of balance force.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So, so we have our healthy and unhealthy lists in the four, the main type. Um, and then, as to normal stresses of parenthood, whatever they look like from infancy, up through, adolescence. Um, if your buttons are going to get pressed, where does the four go, right? So the four goes to the low side of two. As I say, the uninformed four, because when you're informed of your Enneagram, you have the ability to go to either side. It's a conscious choice. We're not lemmings once we know the Enneagram. But until we know the Enneagram, I'm of the belief that we're just reactive. The stress point is two. You're going to go to the low side of two.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that parent who, first of all, has no boundaries. Self-care for them probably never was at the top of the list, even before parenthood. Um, they care for others, they anticipate the needs of others, exclude their own needs. They can be intrusive, um, especially with a child, like giving your child an opportunity to figure some things out for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
instead of doing the figuring out for them because you just anticipated every possible scenario that they could, just do it this way because, I know how to do this for you, honey. Um, you know, and then you take that
Trust me, I've made
experience.
all these
Oh, the
mistakes
mistakes.
before, and I just
Yeah,
don't want you to have to go through that.
yeah, yeah. And the going through it is like, I mean, some things you do want to protect your child from having to experience, but that's also how we learn, by making some of these mistakes, right? So being that intrusive too, that's preventing the child from learning how to walk because they might fall, and that can be a metaphor or literal, but yeah, the hover mothers, right? So if you're stressed out and
Mhm.
if you're a four that's turning into a hover mother, um, that's a red blinking light there. Um, then what happens to that four that's going to the low two is they're going to get resentful because their needs are not being met. They're going to get a little angry. They may get a little explosive if they're going to really do that really low two thing. And they can also be prideful about being the only one who can do the things. So let's say
Yeah.
you have a partner who decides to help you with the laundry and they forget to put the borax in the load and the towels aren't so white. But hell, they're washed, they're cleaned, they're put away, right?
That doesn't
Um,
matter.
because when I do the laundry, I put the borax in and the towels are white.
Oh, this is fun. I like acting like a crazy four. I mean, unhealthy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but there's things to recognize. But what do these things teach us? Not that we're crazy. We're joking, but that we're unhealthy. And if that's what we're doing, instead of saying, "Oh, thank God somebody did the wash and it's folded and it's put away and I can take care of the baby," um, yeah, if you're going to get hung up on being prideful about you're the only one who can do the things, that's an indicator that you're really stressed. So,
I'm having some realistic expectations,
mhm, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And that's a thing for a four when they're out of balance, right? Is
mhm,
they're focused on high drama
yeah,
and everything's a crisis.
mhm,
And so,
yeah, yeah. It's funny, one of my teachers in acupuncture school, one of her, and she was a four, I believe. Um, one of her favorite expressions was when things got too stressful. Um, and it was clear that those stressors were not going to change because they were situations beyond anybody's control. at the administrative level. She would say, well, you
Mhm.
have to just lower your expectations, which can be a really hard thing to hear. I mean, I'm not a 4, but I don't like hearing that.
Mhm.
But sometimes you do have to, like, take that, the 2 steps, 10 steps, 20 steps back and say, is there going to be a net gain in adjusting my expectations here and, settling into reality and not my unrealistic for idealistic, slash can be unrealistic expectations. So yeah, awareness around that. Um, so with the stress points, and I focus on them because I think parenthood is largely, especially uninformed Enneagram parenthood. Um, the stress is big. The stress of parenthood is just big. Um, but the Enneagram gives us another path in the map, another road that is built for us, and that is our security line, and that's where we go when we want to attain something, when we feel safe and good and happy, right? So for type 4, they go to type 1. Which is often thought about as referred to, I should say, as the perfectionist, but also called the reformer. We tend to, the first stepping off point we usually go with that is they're inflexible, um, which is not really type 1. They can do that, but that's really not what they are. They're more structured. They're well-organized people, and there is a healthy expression of that, and ones can bring that when they are healthy. And again, the natural gravitation of a 4, the 4 is going to typically go there when in a good space, in good energy. They're going to go to 1. And it would be easier, and Julie and I had discussed this before, it's easier to be in that place of organization and structure to a large degree with an infant, because the infant isn't going to feed back the drama of a 12-year-old.
Mhm.
Okay. You have more control over the situation. You never have control over anything as a parent, but you have more control in that instance. Is there anything you want to speak to with that, Julie? With the
Well, the
organization?
the control piece,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like having an
yeah.
infant does feel like you're out of control.
Mm,
But but after you've had them for a while,
mm,
they are a little more predictable.
yeah,
You have some idea of how long they're going to sleep or
yeah.
how often they're going to need to eat. And you can put them in their crib and close the door and step away.
Mm-hmm,
And they might cry if they're upset, whatever, but they're not going to call you mean names
mm-hmm,
like that
mm-hmm,
12-year-old is going to do
mm-hmm,
if you don't let
mm-hmm,
them do
mm,
whatever, right?
yeah.
So definitely less likely to push some of the buttons
Mm-hmm,
that you will deal with later on
mm-hmm, yeah,
for that
yeah.
that 4.
Yeah. And I think in that predictable space of when the baby will sleep, take advantage of your natural ability to be organized,
Mhm.
which may make things feel a little easier for the 4 when things aren't
Well, and the
controllable.
structure is a piece that's helpful for the 4, right?
Yeah.
Having
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so structure
Hmm.
can look however you want it to look. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be,
Right. Yeah.
too
Doesn't have to be
specific.
anal retentive structure, just some kind
Right.
of
But it could
organization.
be,
Yeah.
yes, when my
Yeah.
child takes a morning nap,
Hmm.
that's when I do some housework. When my
Hmm.
child takes an
Yeah.
afternoon nap,
Hmm.
something like that
Yeah.
that's flexible.
Yeah. We'll
Because when
roll
it's
out
too
my yoga
rigid,
mat.
yeah, when it's too rigid, you set yourself up for failure.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that would be the lower, that's what happens with the lower expression of the 1. Yeah. Um, so some other qualities of the 1, the higher qualities of 1 is being self-controlled and not taking things personally. So I hear from young moms a lot, from in-laws, sometimes from parents. Well, when I was raising you, I did it this way. And all of a sudden it just feels like this cascade of like judgment and inadequacy, and like fours can't handle being judged or, feeling inadequate. That's like just pierces them. So leaning into your one for that self-controlled energy and remembering it's not personal, which is really, again, getting back to that hormonal piece, that's hard. So, but yeah, using that self-awareness piece, that I can be self-controlled. I have access to the energy of one when I am in a peaceful, centered place, and I want to, move my energy into a better, more peaceful direction. I can be self-controlled and I can choose to not take things personally. Ones are also very self-reliant, which I think can help the four cultivate their awareness around their self-reliance, as opposed to the specialness. And then this one I'd like you to kind of jump in on, Julie. Through the one, the four can learn to be honest with themselves and what they can realistically do. And there's a reason why that's a one quality.
So the four accessing that trait in the one, that I can have realistic expectations for myself. I can be honest about myself, right? Because there's no owner's manual. And the first time you do this, how are you going to know, right? So being able to go to that one of being able to be honest, being able to be self-reliant, to say, I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have today. And also grabbing some of that flexibility to say, this is working today. Today, I feel great about this. Yesterday, I didn't feel great about it. That's okay, right? Instead of noticing each particular moment, if it's good or bad, and judging it, it's overall, some days everybody ate, everybody had clean clothes, and we all went to bed at night, and tomorrow's a new day. And that's my expectation for today.
For today. Yeah. That's the old one day at a time. Yeah.
I love that in yoga, how they say, wherever you are today is fine. Because some days you can touch your toes and reach 20 feet behind you, and other days you can't even bend at the waist.
But you got on the mat.
You showed up
That's
and you
the
got
win.
on the mat.
That's the win. And sometimes I think that's a bigger win than being able to reach the toes the day before.
Absolutely.
Because the day before was an easy day. Just getting on the mat on a butt ugly day, to me, is worth more.
And maybe instead of lowering expectations, going with, my expectation is I'm going to do the best I can today. Whatever that is.
I like that.
And then when it isn't the level that it was a few days ago, but it's the best you
today.
Can.
Right.
So we can't.
So that the thing that comes out of the one's ability to be honest with themselves and being, realistic, and this is, higher in the self-reliance of the one, one's focus is on perfectionism, right? So it's really easy to take that. Perfectionism has a negative connotation, I think, on it anyway. But what the higher one connects to is that we are all perfect as we are. On the day where we don't get all the things perfect, all the things right, they don't meet the expectations. And this is what gets into the, being realistic and accepting what is, accepting the perfectionism of what is, which isn't, it has to be perfect. And you said it, beautifully. I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have today. you collect tools over a lifetime, right? You know, I had a hammer and a screwdriver for a while, and you get a house, you get a couple of other tools, and here's the really cool thing: there's Home Depot, there's Lowe's, right? We can always get more tools to develop ourselves, right? The Enneagram's just one of them. Counseling obviously is another. I mean, there's always tools for us. The tools that you have today are the tools that you've used. You've done the best that you can with your tools, and know that there's a Home Depot down the road and you can get more tools. Whatever that looks like, support groups, finding your tribe, your neighbors, your friends, whoever's going to help support you. There's always more ways to grow, learn, expand, and the next day will always look different. It's always a new dawn. Integrity is important for type ones. And I translate that as saying what you mean, which I think fours sometimes can have a hard time with saying what they mean. And I don't mean saying what you mean in a hurtful way. I mean saying it from a place of being centered and solid. Asking for what you need. If somebody says something to you that's hurtful, maybe, asking them what they meant because it sounded hurtful, and I'm sure you didn't mean to hurt me by criticizing, how I'm putting the baby down for a nap, or, how I'm feeding the baby or whatever, but I'm sure you didn't mean to hurt me, but can we talk about that? And being in integrity about, your feelings, the words that you're using, and saying what you mean. How, I mean, as a counselor, how hard would you say that is for new parents?
Ooh, that's a good question. A lot of the work that I do with parents as far as parenting goes
Mm,
tends to be that they're 12 and
mm,
now they're naughty and they're acting out
mm,
and they're fighting back. I don't do as
mm.
much of that,
Yeah.
parenting strategies with young ones.
Mm.
Um, okay, but that wasn't the question that you asked me.
Yeah.
You,
Just saying what, well, but it did apply to infants, but I think it applies at any age. Saying what you mean. If somebody says something hurtful,
uh-huh,
like that four is going to potentially just leave, right? Whether it's the
right.
child saying something, we got two possible scenarios, I think. The child saying something that's upsetting to the four, um, which would
Or just crying.
probably, yeah, which
Hmm.
would probably put the four into a low two, or just some of the negative attributes of the four itself. Um, what about the relationship with the co-parent, with the partner? Saying what they mean and being in integrity there in the partner, in the parenting relationship, because that's in there too.
Yes, I can see where that would be a struggle for a four who's out of balance, who
Yeah.
goes to the high drama place, who
Yeah.
focuses on crisis.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty difficult place to have an honest conversation about what you need, what you mean.
Mm,
Right? It's
yeah.
also a place where you can't hear it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, like we talked about before, is work on your communication skills,
Yeah.
work on how you behave in a time of stress before you have these times
Yeah.
of stress, because
Mm-hmm.
it turns it all upside down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And depending on how your partner communicates with you,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Knowing both types is
Um,
really helpful. Yeah.
yeah, I can see
Yeah.
where, right, that it would be, because where we both going to meet up here at Explosion?
Yeah.
Is one of us going to be here? One of us is going to be
Mm-hmm.
here, and I know how to get us more
Yeah.
matched,
Yeah.
or what? Um, but not communicating is
Yeah.
deceitful. Not asking
Whoa.
for what you need, right? Not
Wow.
asking for what you need usually ends up being punitive, because
For many
I'm
types, not just fours, but for
for
many.
many types, I'm just going to build up all of this resentment
Mm-hmm. Yep.
because you didn't meet my needs,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
I didn't know what your
Know
need
what the
was.
needs were.
You
Yeah.
should have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know yours.
How do you feel
I,
about, and do you recommend to people family meetings? Like, is
yes
that
and no.
okay? Tell me. Go ahead.
I think it's great. I think it's great if families want to do family meetings and they have an idea and a structure about how they're going to do it.
Uh-huh.
I'm hmm, I'm not comfortable mediating that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I can do it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's where my strengths are, and it's uncomfortable for me because oftentimes when a group comes into a therapist,
Uh-huh.
they want an
Everybody's got an
audience
agenda. Yeah.
and they just want me to watch them fight
Yeah.
or somebody else
Wow.
and choose sides, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of not a fair thing to say because there are plenty of people who go in who really do want insight and
Yeah.
want, like, can you maybe point out where we're not communicating well or what we could do differently here?
Uh-huh.
Um, I think is a great thing to get help and get support.
Yeah.
What's cool about a family meeting session, whatever, is that you get to see everybody in action.
Yeah.
And are they, what are they
Yeah.
bringing to you? Are they bringing
Right.
the honest, this is really how we
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's great if people can learn to communicate
Yeah.
for sure.
It's funny. I wasn't even thinking about like family, like in the counselor's office. That's not what I was thinking. I was just thinking like I have someone that I work with um who every Friday they have dinner. It's usually like they'll bring something in because it's the end of the week. They're both kind of shot, and they'll do something with their son. And then after he goes to bed, they kind of have basically a business meeting to plan for the
Hmm.
week ahead. So everybody's on the same page to kind of offset, stresses, disappointments, frustrations, who can be where when. Is that
I think it's brilliant.
for the four?
Uh, I think so because it keeps them out of having to focus on a crisis.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
keeps them out of being completely inflexible because
Mm-hmm.
we're sitting down right now talking about how are we going to handle these things in the future,
Right.
not we're in the moment of crisis. Now what are you
Yeah.
going to do?
Or the idealism and the fantasy that they can be prone to. Yeah. Yeah.
And it
uh,
it does, I think, help people stay in a place of communicating,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
if we're going to have a meeting about how we're going to handle this week, and then on Saturday I say, well, you didn't do such and such.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You didn't bring it up at the meeting.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah. I
Right.
think
So
there's
yeah.
also like if something does go off the rails unexpectedly, then you can say, I know we're supposed to on Wednesday, but can we instead, and so it can potentially keep communication open throughout.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and you're, for lack of a better term, you're actually forcing someone to communicate at least once a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
the more you do that, the easier it gets. And when
Yeah.
it is structured like that,
Yeah.
I think that helps it become not so personal too.
Yeah.
I don't have to
Hmm.
ask you for help. I
Yeah.
can tell you these are all the things that need to be done.
Hmm.
Which things can you do? Which
Right.
things can I do? Or I can tell you, I absolutely can't do this one thing. I have a conflict with
Hmm.
time.
Right.
Or the car is going to be in the shop on this day. Could you run these
Right.
errands?
Yeah.
And I will make dinner.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So then it doesn't feel so much as my to-do list, your to-do list.
Right.
It's this is what we're doing together
Right.
and how we're dividing it. I think
Yeah.
that's brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's a good use of that one energy for the four to create some kind of an organizational thing where you still feel like
Hmm.
it's it's kind of cool because it's organization, but you're in relationship and
Hmm.
fours want to be in relationship.
Hmm.
So yeah, I hadn't thought of that before, but that might be an interesting thing for a four to do.
I think
Um,
it makes it easier for them too, in that on a day when they're not feeling a hundred
mhm,
percent,
yeah,
or they're maybe feeling a little bit of melancholy.
yeah,
Here's your here's your instructions. This is all
Yeah.
you got to do today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do these things. Don't think about it. You don't have to resent it. You don't have to be,
Yeah.
life isn't fair.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do the things on the list.
Yeah. I wonder too if it would help the four to, on that melancholy day to look back at the previous days and say, wow, yesterday was good. Look at,
If they can go there,
look at the cool
yes.
things, look at the unique things, the special things, that we did, or um yeah, tracking something like that might be helpful.
That might be a
Um
good thing to incorporate in that family meeting. Before
mhm,
we talk about next week, let's talk about what went well this week
yeah, yeah. I like that. I
and
like that.
ending it with
Yeah,
what I'm looking forward to next week.
yeah, yeah. I like that. The looking forward to would be good for them too. Yeah. Um, I don't know if I mentioned being consistent, but that's another one quality um, that fours could go to feel empowered, being consistent. Um, excuse me. I think to some degree that family meeting idea is kind of a version of that too. Um, Consistency in structure and consistency in communication. Um, and talked about being in integrity and being clear in communication. So I think we kind of covered all of that actually in what we just with what we just mentioned. So of course, these are not hard and fast rules. I'm not saying these are things that any four needs to do, but they may be things you can try on if you're parenting and you know a little bit about the Enneagram and you are a four or think you might be a four. Try some of these ideas out. Um, if you are a four, with especially with a well-developed one line, would love to hear your thoughts on parenting and things that you've done to make parenting easier for you. How you've mitigated the stress of parenting, and how you've used the Enneagram with that. Please drop a line in the comments. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. That helps the channel. If you would like to work with Julie, her website is windhorsecounseling.com. And again, she does online and in person. You can reach me at mariamandarino.com. West Valley Acupuncture is my practice here in Phoenix, or I work online with Spiritual Direction, the Enneagram. I also bring in natal charts for some people if that's what they want to do with the Enneagram. And I do Bach Flower formulas as well. So if you're interested in any of those, please reach out to one of us. And Julie, is there anything else you want to add?
I don't
No?
think so.
All
Thank
good?
you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you being here. And
You
thank
too,
you.
Maria.
Yeah, thank you. Thank everybody for showing up. And we will see you next time. Bye.